So today, I'll be making beef bone broth in the Instant Pot. So there's a lot of different recipes for making bone broth. This is just one I found. It says 8 servings of broth, which is kind of a weird way to put it because I think it all depends on how much you would drink and then how much water you add. So here are the ingredients. We have beef bones, carrots, celery, onion, garlic cloves, and then just some spices and seasonings down here. So the very first step is to preheat the oven and then line a baking sheet with aluminum foil. So I have my baking sheet prepped here. And then what goes in the oven is actually the bones, the carrots, the celery, onion, and garlic. So I have prepped here what will be going in the oven. We have, how many pounds of bones is this? 2.29, calls for 2 pounds, so perfect. And they just are bones with some meat and marrow on them, in them. So bones, 2 carrots, 2 stalks of celery, a red onion, garlic. I only need 5 cloves, so I will peel off how many I need and put the rest in the fridge. But yeah, so once all of this is prepared, these 4 ingredients, this doesn't need any preparation, go on here and then into the oven, and they roast for 45 minutes. So all the flavor will come out and the veggies will be all roasted and yummy. So that's kind of how to get started with the broth, at least for the first couple of steps here. Alrighty, so we have the 2 pounds of bones here, the carrots, the chopped up celery, red onion, and then we have 5 little garlic cloves I threw out. So now this is going into the oven for 45 minutes to roast, and then we'll see what it looks like afterwards. And this is what the bones and the vegetables look like after roasting for 40 minutes. They look all white, and anything that looked like meat before now just looks like it's a little bit darker. The vegetables are all roasted. Oh, it smells divine. So now all of this goes into the Instant Pot, and then a few other ingredients are added, which I'll mention. And then it starts to get cooking. So let's keep moving. So I've moved the roasted bones and the vegetables into the Instant Pot. So Instant Pot is currently off, but we will turn it on soon enough. So yep, we have the bones, the veggies, and then we have a couple more ingredients that will be added into the broth. So we have bay leaves, my gallon container of apple cider vinegar. You can see how large it is compared to all the other containers. Apple cider vinegar, salt, and pepper. So these 4 items will go in here. Then we'll fill this up. I usually when I make bone broth, I just like to fill it up close to the max line because then I get the most broth out of the ingredients. So I will do that and then we will go from there. Alrighty, so I've added in the bay leaves, salt, pepper, and apple cider vinegar. Filled it up with water. The max is 6 liters. I put in a little less than 5. So it might be more watered down. I added a little bit more water than the recipe called for, but wanted to make good use of all the good stuff in here and get as much broth as possible. So next step is putting on the lid, selecting manual, and setting the timer for 120 minutes. So this is a 2-hour process. I will say, let me get this here before all right, so we have manual, 120 minutes, high pressure. Last thing for Instant Pots is you wanna make sure right now it's set to venting. You want it sealed. That's what makes it the high pressure. Last thing about this recipe I'll say is you do not need an Instant Pot to make bone broth or any kind of broth really. You can use a slow cooker. You can use a normal pot on the stove. The reason I like the Instant Pot is because it takes 2 hours instead of multiple more hours, but you can use really whatever you'd like. So this is going to be cooking for 2 hours, like I just said. It does take about 10 to 15 minutes to get to pressure. It'll cook for 2 hours, and then I'll show you the after product. All right, so the pressure has been releasing manually for over an hour. So time to open this up and check out this broth. Ooh, smells amazing. All the veggies are on top. I got a spoon so I can stir a little bit and kind of see what we're left with here. Obviously a lot of veggies on the top. I'm trying to pull up a bone, but I think it's on the bottom. We have this like meat coming off. It smells amazing. So the next step is to filter out all of the solids, so all of the vegetables, the bone, any of this meat, and then to let it cool. And when you let it cool, like a small layer of fat will be left on top, and you can like scoop that up and use it for cooking and stuff. So I will go ahead and filter this, and then we will go from there. So I just strained the broth. As you can see, there's no more big chunks anyway. There might be some small pieces left. And right there on the line, you can see I made about 4 liters, 4 quarts of broth. So I'm gonna let this cool entirely. And then, like I mentioned, there should be that little layer of fat on the top. And then this is all of what was strained out. So bones, all the vegetables are at the bottom, so you can't really see them. But yeah. So it's the next morning. I left this to cool overnight in the refrigerator. You see this nice layer of fat on top. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of this. And then what we see underneath is just fresh bone broth. And then once I get rid of this fat, I will filter this broth one more time and then pour it into some containers to store. So I'm going to freeze some broth so I can have it to sip on postpartum. And then some broth I'm going to use as the broth in soup recipes. So when it calls for 2 cups or 4 cups or however much broth, I'm just going to use this homemade one to give it that nice, rich, homemadey type flavor. All right, so I've filtered out the fat that was at the top of the bone broth, and then I have 5 pretty full containers. I bought these off of Amazon. They're plastic deli containers. They hold 32 ounces, almost 1 liter. So yeah, I had almost 5 liters. And what I like about them is that they are stackable. Well, obviously I just stacked them. Microwavable, BPA free, dishwasher safe, and then important for me is freezer safe because, like I mentioned earlier, I think I mentioned that I will freeze some plain bone broth just to sip, have as like a warm drink postpartum, but then I'm also going to use this broth in other soup recipes and store the soup and the broth in these. So it was important to me that they're freezer safe, which they are. So that wraps up this bone broth making video. I hope you enjoyed it. Honestly, I thought making bone broth was always super overwhelming and complicated, but really, summarizing it, you need some bones. I mean, I made beef bone broth, but you could also use chickens. So beef bones, chicken bones, or a whole chicken, and some veggies. You let it cook, depending if you're using an Instant Pot or a normal pot, for a couple hours. And then you just get this super nourishing, delicious broth out of it. So I think it was worth it. I'll hopefully let you know in future videos if it was tasty or not. But I have high hopes. Okay, thanks for watching.